once again to Everything We Do is Magic. This is my introduction to Chaos Magic. This is episode 10. This is my walk, my path, my journey into finding the real power that resides in me and resides in all of you as well. Last week we talked about the meditative practice and breath work, and I don't want anyone to think that there's only one form of meditative practice. I mean, there's meditative practice can be whatever it takes to get you in a state of mindfulness into the present, taking your mind off of what should be, what could be, what would be, all of those possibilities and into what is and into the presence. And that may take the form of, as mine is breath work. I also do use tarot cards in my meditative practice as well. I will engage also in shamanic dance. When I was in the Christian world, the form of meditation that I took because I was charismatic was glossolalia, speaking in tongues, which is again a form of meditation because it channels your attention away from the monkey mind and all its chatter. So why do I seek a meditative practice? Why should you seek a meditative practice? Well, what it does is it alters our perspective. We have been given a perspective, or we've inherited, or actually had it foisted upon us more accurately, a perspective. And generally that's not our perspective. And so the meditative practice allows us to look at situations from a different perspective, a different angle. Part of the meditative practice, part of the magic that I work when I'm dealing with archangels is to see myself, to envision myself as if I'm outside of my body and watching myself. And so that practice gives me a different perspective. And that's what we need. We need an altered perspective to kind of slip by the guardians, the monkey mind, the busy mind, the chatter that wants to keep us defeated. So if you've seen any of my videos, you've heard me talk about this before, the whole concept of whose idea is that. Because no matter what your meditative practice is, there are going to be thoughts that float up, and some of them they're going to shock you, the thoughts that come up. And what happens is immediately we want to judge those thoughts, like, oh, that's a good thought, oh, that's a bad thought. Well, they're just thoughts. And again, because 90 to 95% of the thoughts that come up in our mind did not originate with us. They're not our thoughts. So where did they come from? There are several sources for thoughts. Our peers, television, movies, especially the news. Now that's a big one. When I was back in the Christian world, and one of the things that I noticed was this attack on fatherhood. There really was, because fathers went from being, pretty stand-up guys in the family to being laughing stocks or bungling idiots or terrible, hideous people. And pretty soon reality started to copy the fiction. And what will happen is because people can they identify so readily with the story, and that's the power of commercials as well, is identifying with that story, that we buy into that character and we find ourselves mimicking the character, believing that this character is the epitome of what we should be. I see it in some of the teenagers taking on the affectations, and there's nothing wrong with that to a degree, because you'll find in your meditative practice that those qualities that you admire in others are really the qualities you hold yourself, and those things that you detest that others do are generally things that you do yourself, that everyone is actually a reflection of us. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. But then the worst offender of all is family. So why is family so powerful in setting our false narrative about ourselves? Well, it's because we have so much just invested relationally. I mean, here it is, the first face you generally see outside of the one with the mask on it, and that's kind of ironic, is your mother's face or your father's face. And there's an immediate bond there, because and you hear that voice, and you've heard that voice now for 9 months in the womb, or those voices, and now you're finally putting faces with those voices, and you're trusting that this entity, this person, has my best interests at heart. But you know what? They're still living in that 90 to 95% of other people's ideas, and they haven't dealt with this stuff. And so what happens is they're coming from a place of woundedness, and wounded people wound people. So that woundedness carries through, and the Bible talks about it, calls it generational curses, that the sins of the father will be visited upon the son to the second and even the third generation. Those will increase as they go down. And that's because of this, because if there's not a stop to it, they'll carry forward. So what kind of things am I talking about? I'm just talking about simple things like, you're just like your father. You have your father's temper. Now, pretty soon what happens is you begin to say, I have my father's temper. And now, because there's an emotional attachment to that, you've cast a spell upon yourself where you'll find yourself in situations where you don't understand why you're losing your temper. But it's simply because you must fulfill what you've spoken. And this goes back to the whole breath work thing, and why I believe it's so important that our breath work go through our nostrils, because when we speak words out of our mouth, the breath that comes out of our mouth, and if you want to take a biblical standpoint, it's the ruach, it's the breath of creation that comes forth out of our mouth when we speak. And that's why we have been given the ability to speak, so that we can speak creation into existence. Again, if you look at the Genesis account, whatever Adam called the animals, that's what they became. So now you've got all this baggage heaped upon you, and you can't deny it, because denying it would be a slap in the face to your mother or your father. And then there's the other end of it, where you say, I won't be like that. And I discussed in another video about how there's something about the negative aspect of an idea that's not recognized. That when we say I will not, that the universe, that the energies here, I will, because there's no negative movement in the universe. It's all a positive forward movement. A guy that you should watch, and I'll try to remember to link his videos below in the comments section, but Foolish Fish, and he talks about it. There's a whole exercise that you can use where you phrase everything as a positive. Instead of saying I won't eat sugar, you say I will eat healthy. And again, there's power in that. So here it is. We say I won't be like that. And again, and why is that so powerful? Because we're concentrating on something. Our mind is set on something, even though we say, I don't want to do that. Have you ever, I'll give you an example. Have you ever been hammering a nail and you say, oh, I don't want to hit my thumb? Well, what's the next thing you do? Generally, for me, my thumb is going to get smashed. So instead, when I'm hammering a nail, I think I desire to hit the metal nail every time. Now, the meditative state puts us in the present and lets us get rid of all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And when we cut out that 90 to 95% of those self-limiting beliefs, we're down to the 5% of the thoughts that are actually ours, that have arisen from deep within us. Now, this is kind of the fun and scary part. Sometimes you're not going to like those ideas. You're not going to like what comes up. It's going to scare you. It's going to hurt. But the thing is you must, when you ask, whose idea is that? And the answer is, that's your idea. And here's where we did go. We don't go the shoulda, woulda, coulda. We don't think about what could be, what should be, what ought to be. We accept what is, and then we deal with what is. Now, as you release those self-limiting beliefs and begin to take on the truth of who and what you really are, your future will change. To paraphrase the Bible, it says, as a person thinks in his heart, so he is. So that whatever you think about yourself is true. No matter what you think your reality is, what you think about yourself is the actual truth. If you think you are a loser, you're right. If you think you're a winner, you believe you're a winner, you're right. If we can simply change our beliefs, we can change our reality. Next week, I'm going to talk about the third leg of the meditative stool, so to speak, which is releasing the desire for results. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you'll understand, hopefully. Anyway, that wraps us up tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you like us, subscribe, check out some of our other videos on sustainable permaculture, because it's all tied in. There's three streams that I talk about moving together. There's an agorism, anarchist, voluntarist, let's run everything horizontally movement, and then there's the sustainable permaculture of sustaining the environment, saving the earth, using natural means of growing and producing. And then there's Magick, and Magick kind of brings the three in together. So until next time, I want to leave you with namaste. And what namaste means is the divine me recognizes the divine you. When you see divinity in the other person. Remember earlier in the video, I said, that what you acknowledge and appreciate about others is a reflection of you. Namaste.